I've heard in the past a lot of my friends complaining about their class's mobility not being as good as the other classes, and this has come from each of the 3 classes. This usually comes up during special quests like Whisper of the Worm or 0 Hour. Often somebody fails a jump and would claim in frustration, "Oh, if I was a hunter I could have made that," or "If I was using this exotic, this would be a joke." I wanted to know to what extent this was true, so I jumped into the Leviathan raid and started messing around for a bit. I drew up a few charts, and while I expected some of the results, others came as a bit of a surprise. So let's dive into exactly what I found. First off, using the long stretch leading up to the main raid stuff, I tested jump distances, and used the tiled floor for measurement. To start, I checked the smallest distance I could imagine, using each jump, which was walking off the ledge sideways and jumping. Then I tried walking off straight ahead and jumping. Finally, I tried running and jumping. These 3 charts display my findings, with the red line at the bottom being the starting line, and the circle blotches being the corresponding exotic. Now this was from a very small sample size of jumps, but I did try to get the optimal distance out of each jump type. There's a lot to say about all this data, but I'd like to point out a few important examples. The Hunter's strafe jump, which should arguably be the best for covering ground, performed the absolute worst in distance. The Titan's catapult lift had the lowest base distance covered, yet had a very respectable distance with the exotic. The Warlock's blink ability is absolute garbage and needs the exotic to even be comparable. And there's some data that's not shown on the graph, but using the reworked Dawnblade, I was able to cover ground that was beyond what the graph shows. The Heat Rising buff extends your capacity to glide far beyond its regular distance, covering a total of about 35 tiles. The top and overall distance for each class is the triple jump with exotic for Hunter, strafe with exotic for Titan, and strafe for Warlock. The next thing I tested was jump height. Now this set of charts are a little goofy because I was working on a slant and angles, and I apologize for that, but basically, the further to the right that the line is, the higher that variance can jump. For example, the Titan's high lift unsurprisingly gives the most height on a jump. The main thing I wanted to talk about here is how the blink ability is roughly on par with the burst jump, but when you add the exotic, it easily gives the most height. And lastly, the Hunter height difference with exotic is incredible. I didn't bother adding the Titan exotic stats as it made no difference here. To sum up, the top performers are triple jump with exotic for Hunters, high lift for Titans, and blink with exotic for Warlocks, but because of how unrealistic it is to run blink with exotic, second place goes to balance glide for Warlocks. The next thing I tested was recovery, or how well you could change direction mid-jump. I have no graphs for this one, so we're just gonna jump through each one for each class. Hunter. High jump had no recovery. Strafe has good recovery, and triple has okay recovery and okay re-recovery, making it fantastic all around. Titan. High lift needs to be activated before you start falling if you want to gain any height, but it can recover and it gives decent height. Strafe gives a good burst momentum back, but it's really not that great for wiggling or height. Catapult needs you to start recovering immediately, but it does give some height. Warlock. Strafe loses a little height and it gives great wiggle potential, so overall good recovery. Burst gives way too much initial burst, and it needs to be used after you've already decided to recover. Balance gives a good amount of height and in-air wiggle potential, so overall great recovery. Blink is the one thing worse than burst. The very last thing I tested was each class's ability to stop their momentum. Now, this wasn't as dependent on which variant of jump you had, but the class you were playing as. So in the case of Hunters, they're able to kill basically all of their downwards momentum with a single jump. Same goes for Warlocks, where they can initiate a glide and basically stop mid-fall. The one class that suffers from falling momentum is of course Titan, who has to slow himself down before hitting the ground. Now with all that laid out, you can see why people have so many conflicting opinions on jumping puzzles and the like. In my opinion, the best jump variants are triple jump for Hunters, high lift for Titan, and balance glide for Warlocks. Now truth be told, they all have strengths and weaknesses, but all mobility options are typically viable. Except for Blink. Fuck Blink.